Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. In this video I'm going to try to perhaps give my best attempt at differentiating between sensing and intuition, because I think I've already stated that making these differentiations is extremely hard because sensing and intuition are really just two sides of the same coin. So when you try to separate them, most of the time you're going to end up in the realization that you're trying to do two coins. You're trying to separate two coins, right? You're trying to give two definitions for the same thing, and you always end up in a kind of spiral, in a paradox. But I've been thinking of a certain definition for both for quite a while now, months, which I think is pretty fine. It's a pretty good definition. It can fit into pretty much every definition I've ever heard of intuition and sensing. So I think it's probably pretty close to the truth of these. There's also the whole matter of, cognitive functions. They don't work alone, so intuition and sensing are also working with a judging function. But I think what I'm going to be saying about intuition and sensing is going to really dictate how the judging function is going to work, the one that they have, that they're working with. In any case, I'm going to get straight into it. So it's a bit abstract, but keyword here what I'm going to be talking about is the concept of contextual frameworks. So we can imagine a contextual framework as a line, and it's a line that pretty much spans for infinity, right? From horizontal line, just imagine it doesn't matter, just imagine a horizontal line, and we put 2 points on this line. Now I don't like to imagine them as points, I just imagine them as two vertical lines on a horizontal line, just two small vertical lines, very small. And so here we get a contextual framework because everything that is in between these two lines is your contextual framework. These two lines are giving context to something. So in this sense, these two lines are delimiting a concept or idea. If it can be imagined, it's pretty much going to be in a contextual framework. In fact, there is a meta concept for contextual frameworks, in the sense that a contextual framework in itself is a concept defined by a conceptual framework already. So that's pretty interesting. So what is the definition, or, well, a contextual framework is defining, right? So what is the definition of a definition? This is essentially what we're trying to define, right? To make clear. So what's defining intuition and sensing? We could say my first realization was that intuition was based on big frameworks, whereas sensing was smaller, more detailed frameworks. So it's not, what is the difference between big and small, right? Because it's two sides of the same coin. So we could also define it as the pull that a framework has towards either expanding or contract. So expanding would be the intuitive pull, and contracting would be the sensing pull of the framework. Or we could actually think about it in absolutes, where we say that intuition has expanded the framework so much that it has broken the framework, in the sense there's no longer two vertical lines defining the framework, so there's no definition. It's an infinite line, an infinite spectrum, so to speak. That would be intuition at its most purest definition. And then sensing has contracted both lines together so much that it creates just one single line. in which we get this sort of, it's an either or statement, either on the left or the right. But there's nothing inside to really analyze. I think this is closer to the real definition of how these work, but well, we're never going to get anything in absolutes. We're never going to get a straight line with nothing in it. We're never going to get a straight line with just one separator. There's always going to be two separators creating a delimitation, a contextual framework. We could even say that in this contextual framework, in any contextual framework, what's inside of the framework, so what's between the two lines, is sensing, and what is outside of the two lines is intuition. But that's quite interesting once you either delete the lines or you bring them together. The roles are sort of reversed, but I'm not going to get into yeah, you can play with the concept a bit. This is also, to give a more concrete example, you can see, for example, how sensing is people talk about sensing being the present. So when we talk about time, we talk about contextual frameworks. When we talk about history, we try to divide history into different frameworks, like the Renaissance would be a framework, you know. We try to give exact moments where a certain time period started or ended, you know, so we're delimiting the framework. But if we say, what is the present moment, right? You can define the present moment as today, the entire day, right? Started at 0, 0, and ended at 24 hours. So we have our contextual framework there, and that's a pretty big contextual framework compared to the present being this exact second that I'm in right now. That's a very small contextual framework, right? That's why sensing is usually said to be more in the present, because it's usually reducing the contextual framework of time into like the actual moment right now. But there is no sort of, again, you can't really bring the two lines together fully. There's always going to sort of be a space in between the two lines, right? Which would be the present. And overall, we can see, if you've watched my last video, when we connect intuition or sensing to a judging function, that's why sensing is, in essence, our digital thinking. So it's the thinking that operates in either or statements, black and white statements. Whereas intuition is working in probabilistic terms. It's very sensitive to probabilistic matters. To probability, and it's working in spectrums, right? So it's working in fractions and in decimals. So generally speaking, I think this gives a pretty clear view of both of them. I don't really think I need to expand anymore on this. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.